I want to suck your blood! Okay, now that we've gotten that bit out of the way, listen, vampires suck. Pun intended, or at least D&D ones do. But before I dive into exactly why I'm saying that, first, a teaser for the Kickstarter project we love, Zyroot, the Pan-African fantasy role-playing game, of which I am the lead mechanical designer. And then, introductions! Enjoy, and if you want to check out the Kickstarter, check the link in the description. As of the release of this YouTube video, there are 8 days left to back Zyroot, the Pan-African fantasy role-playing game. Hey folks, my name is VJ Harris. My pronouns are they, them, he, him, and something funny. I'm a full-time tabletop role-playing designer and professional game master. You might recognize my name from things such as MCDM Productions, Arcadia, Flea Mortals, or An Elf and Nor Cat Little Baby, volumes 1 through 4. Okay, introduction done, let's get back to it. Okay, so maybe I lied. I don't really think vampires suck in D&D, I just think they could be better. There's a large variety of vampires across 5e from official sources, Blood Drinker Vampire, Gnoll Vampire, Kobold Vampire Spawn, Mind Drinker Vampire, Vampire Spawn, Vampire Spellcaster, Vampire Warrior, Strahd. There's stuff from Grim Hollow by Ghostfire Gaming, Vampire Spawn, Young Vampire, Adult Vampire, Ancient Vampire. Flea Mortals has Blood-Starved Vampire, Vampire Swarm, and Count Rodar von Glauer. Tome of Beasts 1 and 2 has Vampiric Vanguard and Umbral Vampire. The Monster Manual Expanded, volumes 1 and 3 on the DM's Guild have Vampire Lord Blackguard, Vampire Spawn Assassin, Vampire Spawn Sorceress, Vampire Spawn Warrior, Vampire Spawn Commander, Vampire Spawn Glamour Bard, Vampire Spawn Monk, Vampire Spawn Priest of Death, Vampire Spawn Warlock of the Fiend, and finally, the ultimate bestiary, the Dreaded Accursed, has Vampire Fledgling, Vampire, Vampire Night Stalker, Vampire Pack Runner, Vampire Noble, and Ancient Vampire. There's a lot of vampires, lots of places to choose from. If any of them interest you, I have everything linked in the description. But, like I said, I think they could be better, and the way I think that is by stealing vampiric abilities from different mediums. So, let's talk about it, starting with Vampire. London. 1918. You are a newly turned vampire, Dr. Jonathan Reed. As a doctor, you must find a cure to save the city's flu-ravaged citizens. As a vampire, you are cursed to feed on those you vowed to heal. Will you embrace the monster within, survive and fight against vampire hunters, undead skulls, and other supernatural creatures? Use your unholy powers to manipulate and delve into the lives of those around you to decide who will be your next victim. Struggle to live with your decisions. Your actions will save or doom London. There's 11 active skills in total in the game. Autophagy, Reed's primary method of healing himself, exchanging blood for health. At later levels, the skill can be upgraded to provide health regeneration alongside the instant healing. Coagulation, freezes an opponent in place for several moments, leaving them vulnerable. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either incapacitate the target for longer or to also provide blood upon use. Blood Barrier. Exchange blood for a temporary shield against attacks. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either absorb more hits before breaking or to deal blood damage to nearby opponents upon expiration. Claws. Quickly swipe forwards, dealing melee damage. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either generate blood upon hitting an opponent or to stun them instead. Blood Spear. Fire a blast of blood damage toward an opponent and anything else along the way. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either deal more focused damage or to split into smaller spread spears. Shadow Mist. Lay down a supernatural mine to erupt with shadow damage after a delay. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either cover more range upon detonation or to absorb blood. Spring. Instantly charge towards an opponent, closing the distance and dealing shadow damage. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either deal more damage or to stun the target. Shadow Veil. Enter an invisible state that lasts as long as the vampire has stamina to burn. At later levels, this skill can be upgraded to either provide a damage and stun bonus upon leaving stealth or to allow dodging whilst maintaining the veil. Rage. Unleash the Beast. Teleport to all nearby opponents and strike each several times for high melee damage. Abyss. Summon the Shadows. Incapacitate an opponent and deal high shadow damage to them. Blood Cauldron. Boil the blood, forcing an opponent to explode, dealing high blood damage to both them and all nearby opponents. Next up is RuneScape. River of Blood is the 9th and final quest in the Marique quest series. The quest features Venescula and the vampires having discovered a way to cross the river south, and the player trying to find a way to stop a war occurring between Misthalin and the vampires. The focal point of this quest is Paterdomus. In this particular quest, you fight Vanstrom Claus, the big boss at the end of the quest series. Vanstrom has its standard melee and magic attacks, but he also has some special abilities. Stare into the darkness! When Vanstrom moves to the center of the room and yells, "Stare into the darkness," you should do the exact opposite. Let the blood consume you! Vanstrom will teleport you into the middle of the room and spawn a ball of blood under you when he yells, "Let the blood consume you." Come, fiends, and aid your master! During the fight, on a few occasions, Vanstrom will run to the center of the room and yell out, "Come, fiends, and aid your master," which summons 2 small blood-veiled leechers, who will heal him if not killed quickly. They are relatively weak and have only 1,200 life points. They move slowly and spawn in the opposite sides of the room from each other. If they get to Vanstrom, they heal him and then die. Blood Bombardment. At several points during the fight, Vanstrom will launch himself into the air and throw balls under you similar to the Blood Pool attack that can hit for high damage. None of the things we see here are represented in actual vampiric abilities as far as I am aware in D&D, but let's change that starting with vampire abilities. We're going to skip Autophage and Abyss and Blood Cauldron. Why? Because I don't want to do them. Note, I am purposely omitting damage here in DC so you can scale this up or down depending on what type of vampire you want to use this on. Coagulation. The target must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the target is paralyzed until the start of the vampire's next turn as its blood coagulates. Blood Barrier. When the vampire has less than its maximum hit points, it can roll a hit die, subtracting the amount of damage, and create a blood shield that grants it a +5 to AC until the end of its next turn. Claws. The target must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, the target is stunned until the end of its next turn. Use this in addition to the unarmed strike, not in replacement. Blood Spear. You throw a spear of blood in a 100 feet long line in a direction you choose. Each creature in the line must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failure, it takes full necrotic damage. On a success, it takes half. Shadow Mist. You throw out a ball of shadow within 60 feet of you. When a creature enters the area, it must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the target takes full cold damage or half as much on a success. Spring. If the vampire moves at least 10 feet straight towards a target and then hits it with an attack, it deals additional necrotic damage. Shadow Veil. The shadows engulf the vampire, making it invisible until the start of its next turn. If the vampire moves more than 30 feet from its original position, the shadows dissipate. Rage. Choose up to 5 creatures it can see within 60 feet. The vampire teleports to each of them using the shadows and makes an attack. Stare into the darkness. Magical darkness spreads from a point the vampire chooses within 60 feet to fill a 30-foot radius until the end of the vampire's next turn. When a creature, excluding the vampire, enters the area for the first time or starts or ends their turn in that area, the creature must make a Constitution saving throw, taking cold damage on a failure and half as much on a success. Next up, RuneScape. Let the blood consume you. Pools of blood form underneath 3 creatures of the vampire's choice within 30 feet. The creatures must make a dexterity saving throw. On a failed save, the blood bubbles up and splashes on them. They take necrotic damage on a failure and half as much on a success. Aid your master. The vampire summons 2 blood-veiled leechers. If they get to the vampire, they heal a number of hit points equal to their own before dying. For the blood-veiled leechers, I just reskinned the warg, made them medium, and changed the bite attack to a tongue attack with reach and dropped the HP from 26 to 25. Nice symmetrical number. And I also made them slower. Blood Bombardment. The vampire launches itself into the air with wings or levitate. It summons balls of blood from its own wounds or another creature's wounds and throws it at nearby creatures within 30 feet. On a hit, the creature takes necrotic. And that's it, folks. New abilities for vampires. And while I didn't mention it in this video, I did make some conversions for Daggerheart as well. Just check out the link in the description. See you next time. Peace